This is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us here on the broadcast. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya, and at Ayub Abdikadir with me in studio. Members of the bicameral parliament. On my immediate right is Senator Richard Onyonka, representing the county of Kisii. On his right is the constituency representative of Belgut, Mheshimiwa Nelson Koech, who as well is the chairperson of the Foreign and Defence Relations Committee of the National Assembly. And we also have elders member of parliament, Dr. Adan Kainan, with us in studio this morning. Shortly we'll be joined by the senator representing the county of Makueni, Dan Manzo, who will be here with us. Starting off with the front pages of the publications, The Standard says MPs under siege. Parliament resumes today on the front page, says the paper, to a season that will test their nerves. The executive has bullishly, says the paper, asserted that MPs will do as they say, while Wananchi feel the MPs can rescue them from the squalor by legislating against some government wishes. Will the government whim prevail? The quotations from the president, who said that we'll be watching closely events in Parliament, and that of Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, who said any Kenya Kwanza MP who shall vote against the finance bill will face the full force of the party disciplinary mechanisms. He said you cannot play opposition politics in government. Party position is supreme. Githunguri lawmaker Gathoni wa Mushomba, however, said, I will not be cowed by threats and intimidations to support the finance bill. It will go into history that I rejected the oppressive taxes. That's according to the Githunguri lawmaker. That story is further highlighted on page number 6 of the publication. Coming to you first, Dr. Adan Kainan, on this. As you resume from recess today, two critical components will be watching you, members of parliament, with close attention. That's the executive on one hand. The president has been clear on how he wants the voting pattern and the debating pattern to look like. And of course, members of the public who as well are interested party and a constant factor in that equation. On which way do you think, or on which way does your support lie? Which is the path that you will support between the two institutions?
I think, first of all, that's a leading question. But let me say this. Members of parliament are the representative of the people of Kenya. And Kenya is a democracy. A democracy, by definition, means government of the people, by the people, for the people. Mm-hmm. And therefore, as representative of the people, we are people who are seasoned, we are people who reason, we are people who understand when and what to do. This headline by the Standard actually is sensational, and it's meant actually to put fear and despondency in the minds of not only the members of parliament, but also the Kenyan public. Okay. This is not the first budget or finance bill. We have had it before. And there are structures. This bill has been published by the government, generated, actually, let me say, contextualized, generated by the government through the established institutions. Got for its first reading, subjected to public participation through the committee. The committee has had actually public hearings. Okay. And ultimately is going to prepare a report. The report now will be availed to the members of parliament, the second reading, the third reading, and make an informed choice. But let me say, you have asked me a leading question. Yep. We must appreciate as a country, there are issues, we can't be politicking around the clock. Every cycle we are through with one cycle of election, before even the next one, that is why we have lost. I just want to take you through, get your Google, the GDP of Ethiopia for 2023 and compare with the GDP of Kenya. Okay, what are the numbers? The GDP, projected GDP of Ethiopia for next year is going to be 440 billion US dollars. The GDP of Kenya will be 110 billion US dollars. If you compare what the magic the Ethiopians have done and why we have stagnated from 1963 when we got our independence today is because of politics. For how long shall we continue with the politics? Destructive, petty, partisan politics that has not taken this country anywhere. This country is supposed to be a middle-income country. We are struggling. We are struggling with everything. This requires an informed and courageous decision. Okay. This is why me as an individual, all right, and all those who canvass around me in the name of the Jubilee Party, yes, will support this bill pursuant to the recommendations by the Finance and Planning Committee. Okay. Because they are there, they'll bring, they've gone through it. It's not that everything in the bill is 100%, But I think we must think out of the box and support the national interest. And I'll say this, and this is the information that Kenyans actually must accept. The president of Botswana is in the country, I'm told. In 1968, Botswana, a newly independent country, we sent livestock experts to go and help them set up the Botswana Meat Commission. Where is our Meat Commission today? What's the status of Botswana Meat Commission? Botswana Meat Commission today provides beef to the entire world. Kenya Meat Commission is almost under receivership. Every 2 years, the government must intervene. These are realities. Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, South Korea. These countries took off. These countries succeeded simply because of pragmatic leadership.
Okay, so
and that's why, just let me say it, that's why today, the politics aside, for once, let's think out of the box. Our shilling is under siege, not because of the making of the government, because the coffers are empty. So if we don't take these drastic measures through taxation, let me tell you this, and this is what I want to tell Kenyans. Very soon, our shilling will be a paper money, to lose value, it will not serve. So it's going to be counterproductive. Which one? We have to take painful, we have to make painful decisions. These painful decisions are in the form of what is contained in this bill. Let's pass it. It is temporary. It's painkiller. Ultimately, after 2 years, 3 years, we will plow back. And we will benefit. And that's why I want to urge Kenyans. Don't believe in the sensational stories. Support what is good in the bill. Accept the decision of your members of parliament.
Thank you.
Not through coercion. These sensational stories is what has stagnated everything that we have done at the expense of our development.
And I get your point. We'll talk about the content of the finance bill because there are different components to it. I'll come to you, Senator, and Honorable Koech. Your position is clear. You'll vote for the bill. But you have laid emphasis on the required leadership, the visionary leadership that should push the country. You have cited examples of Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and many Asian giants. You're one of the longest members of parliament at the National Assembly. And if you peg that blame on the leadership the country has had in the previous administration, you are all members of the bicameral parliament and seasoned politicians. What percentage of that problem that you have pegged on the leadership will you take individually for where we are and the stagnation economically that you have pointed out?
I 100% agree with you. I also take responsibility. Had we acted, and I will tell you this, in 2002 when Mzee Kibaki won, the GDP of the Republic of Kenya was 188 billion annually. Barely enough to meet our operational cost. Within a span of 10 years, that rose to 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings. What magic did Kibaki perform? He made deliberate, conscious economic decisions that were tailor-made for the benefit of the people of Kenya. And that's why we should be proud. Had it not been the issue of 2007, maybe Kibaki will have taken this country to another level. That is what we expect His Excellency President William Ruto to do. I know it's not going to be an easy thing. It's painful. But these decisions must be made. Otherwise, we'll default with our payments. Kenya will be declared a pariah state. Our global rating will go down. The individuals who are pushing for this will come round and blame the government. Mr. President, you are the CEO of the Republic of Kenya. You are the head of government. You are the head of state. Kenyans have elected you. Go ahead and implement decisions that will add value to the well-being of the people of Kenya. And disregard the politics, the head-driven politics of the day that is meant actually to derail your efforts, to distract you. Go ahead, we'll give you the support. And that support is what is going to add benefit to the people of Kenya in the next 2-3 years to come.
And that's why we have Parliament, which is more or less the shock absorber at the
question of the role. And I want to say this. Had we acted, we were elected at the same time with the Excellency the President in 1997. Had we acted differently from 1997 to certain legislative proposals that were proposed by the then government, I think Kenya will have been at a different level today. It's not good to regret, but I think the time is now to act, to change that narrative, that Kenya is not a pariah state.
We will go forward as to what we want done and how to further grow our economy, embolden our democracy, and of course push this country to the heights of prosperity. Senator Onyonka, the position of your coalition party is clear. Azimio, yesterday they said members of parliament from the coalition political party should vote not in support of the bill, and that anyone who does from Azimio will face the wrath of the people in their respective constituency. What is it that in the finance bill and the contents therein do you dislike as a coalition political party?
First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. You know, this thing called democracy is very interesting. in my thinking, the way Kenyans and the politicians, the way we behave about this democracy is sometimes very interesting and surprising. Why do I say so? If you look at the history of our country, it's fascinating when I look at it because, like you've said, my brother Kenan has also been around. I've been around with him also all this time. The problem with our country started, our problems actually started from the time when, after Kibaki left and he has served his term, and our debt was just I think it was about 1.6, 1.9 trillion shillings. After that, the Jubilee government, where he was a member.
He was an ODM member?
No, he was a Jubilee guy. At that time, what happens? We then begin borrowing money to the extent that in a period of less than 10 years, the total amount of money that the country is in debt has gone to 10 trillion shillings. All right? So here we are as a country. We have excessively borrowed. After we have borrowed, now you have a new president and a new government that is coming in, and it is saying the only way we can get ourselves out of the hole we are in is to tax you as much as we can. And what we are saying in the opposition is very simple. There's no country that has taxed its people to prosperity. And in real terms, what we are actually saying, and for me, this is my very sincere opinion, we in the opposition will want the president to succeed. We have no problem with him succeeding. But this thing we call democracy requires that the president then must come out and tell us, because we are stakeholders, and tell us what is it that he's trying to do. He says one day he is not borrowing. Yesterday you saw he has borrowed $540 billion US. You saw that? Yeah, you saw the money. Yesterday, there's money that has been borrowed. I think last 2 weeks ago, there was more money that has been borrowed. And what we are saying is, we need the government to be clear to these Kenyan people. Can the government tell us what is it that the government wants to do? Is it tax and tax and tax and continue spending, spending and spending? Or are we going to come up and the president will tell us, we are in a mess, this is what the problem is, the amount of money we think we are going to spend is this, our recurrent expenditure. You've seen stories about how much money we politicians are wasting. So we are not bitter, or we are not against the current government because of what the president wants to do. What we are asking for is prudence.
Okay.
How are we going to spend the money that we have? How are we going to fix the problems which have come up and make sure that these interventions that the government is suggesting are legitimate, are practical, and they are short-term, so that we don't go over a period of 5 years where Kenyans are suffering the way they are. The reason why we are disagreeing with some of these bills, and let me use this, Mheshimiwa Kenan, you always watch American politics. Okay. Why did Biden call for the speaker?
To address the debt issue. To
address the debt issue. Why did the Americans sit down and discuss amongst themselves how much are they going to spend in defense, how much are they going to spend on the social welfare system, how much are they going to spend? Why does it look odd when we say we also would like the president to speak with the Azimio team? But every time we say that, you hear people talking about, oh, they want a handshake now. You know, this handshake is what Raila and Kalonzo Musyoka and all these people want. What we are saying is, let us be sincere and honest, engage the parties that are involved, because we are all stakeholders.
Thank you. So the head of state is not consultative, is what you are saying. Honorable Nelson Koech, in support for or against the bill, yes or no, before we proceed?
Of course I support it.
Okay. And why then, what makes you to support the contents of the Finance Bill 2023?
You know, I'll tell you, Ayub, and I've listened to so many people. So many people have not socialized with this finance bill. It's just a talk. Actually, the narrative that is out there is being driven by the media.
Okay.
I actually looked at the stakeholders meeting that happened in Serena, where the president,
on Friday,
business people stakeholders meeting that happened in Serena with the president. Many of them have not read this finance bill because people have just relied on the media. So media is becoming, like my colleague did say, Honorable Eden, becoming sensational on this matter. Let me tell you, I have read this finance bill, and I've really socialized with it. If you critique, like what happens in the US or other jurisdictions, an opposition then should be providing an alternative. That is why the finance bill becomes a public document at some point, public participation, to allow people to give their input on where they feel that this is going to injure or become a bit expensive or a load to the citizens. No one out of all these people are giving a solution. It is easy to come out and condemn. Look at housing levy.
Okay, before we proceed, I'll give you the time. You'll proceed with your point. When you say the media has driven the narrative, I'll hold you to question as to our understanding, because it's a discourse to educate the Kenyan people.
Yeah.
But how then would you justify your point when we had institutions and stakeholders like the Kenya Association of Manufacturers who appeared before the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, chaired by your colleague Kuria Kimani, the unions who have opposed this, including teachers, university lecturers, and others. We had the Law Society of Kenya. I mean, key stakeholders in this country who expressed their concern as to the contents of the bill, including even private partners with the government who are undertaking some of the critical development projects here in Starehe, including Suleiman Shahbal and company, who had said we have to address some issues in the bill before we proceed.
Which was very good. I'm not refusing. I'm not saying it is wrong to critique the bill. No, let us critique and have a better document come out. All I'm saying is that there has not been genuine. In fact, there are so many that have come out to support the bill. Why has it not been reported? Like you are reporting, all you are reporting is negative. But there is a lot of silent majority who also their input, we've never, ever, ever reported. There are so many people who support this bill. Because if you, and I like people when they criticize, they say this is the section in this finance bill that I'm uncomfortable with. Anyone who comes to you and tells you that the entire finance bill is hoshwork, then of course they're lying. There is something that is good about this document. That, and how do these people want us to address the issue of unemployment? Okay. There is nothing that was not captured in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto that is not in this finance.
Okay, but to be fair enough, the Sunday before the previous Sunday, I covered the Finance Committee's proceedings at the Garden Inn Hotel, and 90% of the stakeholders supported this bill, including the Border Association, the Jua Kali sector, the Marketers Association of Nairobi. They supported the bill, 95%.
Yes.
And we did cover that.
No, I'm not saying you.
In fact, we said in support of the bill. That was our tagline.
I'm not saying these media.
Okay, not per se, but I was just, I just wanted to get a clarification.
Actually, I'm a member of the committee.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this.
You are not there at the time. That was on a Sunday.
I'm a member of the committee. You see, Kenyans were fed with a lot of lies. The moment you interact with even the person who is presenting their concerns, they say, no, they thought this was this. That's why they said there was an information gap. People didn't go through this. They just believed what they saw in the newspaper. And I can tell you, we are live to, without prejudice, to the report of the committee, but we are live to what the public raised. And our intention is to make even the bill better through public participation.
And recommendations that are presented.
Even better.
Absolutely.
An idea that was proposed in the bill, through the public participation, might even generate a better idea than what was even envisaged in the bill. And that's why that's the essence of actually public participation.
Okay. Senator Manzo, and I want your account here before we get to the break. Come back now and get to the contents of the bill and what informs what within that bill. And your position has been clear that it's a no. You're not a member of the National Assembly, but bicameral by extension.
Yes.
But why are you opposed to the finance bill? Is it partly because it's driven by the government, or you have understood and you know the consequences of what it will have on the economy?
Well, there is what is going to happen to the economy, and most important, first of all, this is an omnibus bill. It is carrying many other statutes. It's not one act. And some of the statutes under this bill are devolved. So in fact, it should be coming to the National Assembly if the Constitution was to be followed. The problem is if you see, I should come to the Senate, if you see MPs under siege, if you see the heading, the standard, like my friend Koech is under siege, he cannot speak his mind, then you can see unga, sugar prices go up in this bill. You know, electricity now has already been doubled. So long as there are fuel levies, which are very high, and they're being increased, you know that's never going to lower the cost of living, and because of transportation and manufacturing and such things. So, but because National Assembly is now a rubber stamp, I'm telling you, if it goes secret ballot, no one will vote for this bill, including Koech. But because the president said, I am watching you, Koech, vote no. I deal with you on ground. So there's a big problem there. Is you know, it's like slavery. You know, there's no one's conscience, and the people are ahead of members of parliament. They are ahead of Azimio. They are ahead of Kenya Kwanza. The people of Kenya are very upset, and there are very many brilliant Kenyans who have analyzed this bill. And that's why we have supported Omutata's petition, including the Law Society and quite a number of legislators and lawyers. There are 6 points of illegalities, and if they don't correct it on the floor of the House, there's nothing called third reading. You know, in fact, this bill will be passed in 5 minutes if they are going to pass it. And we really want also Kenyans, now that the president is watching, we also want Kenyans to watch which members of parliament are betrayers of the people who elected them.
And you said...
I think there's something that needs to be corrected. That house, the Kenya National Assembly
is a rubber stamp.
Comprised of 345 members of parliament. I think it will be wrong, in my opinion.
Okay, I wanted to hold him to that account. And why we have this dispensation as a constitution is to have a house with independent members who represent the interests and carry forth the interests of the people, to prioritize it over the executive and to check over each other. You said that Honorable Koech and Honorable Kainana are under siege by virtue of the president's
They're just a rubber stamp.
Okay, which he made
which
he made on Sunday in Narok West constituency. On the flip end, why were you in government, and would you support if Kalonzo Musyoka would say this?
I will not support, and I'll give my reasons.
So you'll defy your party leader?
Of course.
Okay.
He has never defied.
Actually,
he's just...
let me say this. I respect Honorable, but Honorable also is one astute believer in the leadership of His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. He has never disagreed with that.
Never. Okay, thank you.
But I think there are two things, because we are this is a live show. First of all, I want to disagree that we are not slaves. Certainly, I'm not a slave. I think, I reason, I act in accordance with my conscience and what resonates well with the people that I represent and the national good. So to that extent, I'm not a slave.
But I will advise.
Because that's an insult. Two, it is the group who are opposed to this bill who have asked for the voting to be made public. So the president was just responding to what they have asked for. If that is bad, it's you who have asked for. And we'll be the first. There's nothing to hide. In any case, even through the system voting, where you have voted will still be known. So there's nothing secret about the voting. It's the right to information. So I believe you need to understand this. There are two ways, and I think, let me explain to this. You can stand at the dock and say, you will write your name and indicate where you are voting. You can also vote through the machines. Either way, it's public.
Okay.
Where you have voted will be known. So there's no secret.
Honorable Kenan, why there is a dip in mistrust among Kenyans as to the conduct of you, the political class, is because of what you have said in public and your conduct. For example, Junet Mohammed is on record. It's in the Hansards. We covered it. He said that's why we are like cows. And by definition, saying that we all follow Odinga and ODM. Ndindi Nyoro, a Jubilee Party member in 2017, when the Supreme Court nullified President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election, called for a suspension of the Kenyan Constitution, saying that the president then should rule with iron fist and clamp down on dissent and those who are in the opposition. It's by virtue of your conduct, members of the bicameral parliament, why Kenyans have no trust in the conduct of parliament. I mean, the Kenyan public who pay taxes, who pay your salaries, who fund you.
There's a lot of trust from Kenyans.
Okay,
yeah.
So and
that's why, for instance, Kainan has been elected almost 4 times. They trust him. 5 times.
Unless it's just a minutiae of 290 constituencies.
All of us in this table,
there's only one point.
More than twice.
Okay, and you represent constituencies.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me, once again, I have been struggling with this issue because of what is it that we are achieving? What is the agenda of our electability, for example? Are we comfortable that a president can stand up and give a warning, the way the president gave a warning and said, let me see you vote any other way, and the vice president turns around and says, in fact, if you vote against this bill, then don't come and ask us for roads. But I thought Kenya was a country where when money is distributed and when this money is given out, because it's public money, then this money is equitably and reasonably shared amongst all the areas, amongst all the regions, across all the political parties. And I go back, Ayub, I go back to the point I was raising. Democracy does not necessarily mean that if me, as Onyonka, stand up and talk about this housing issue, then it means I'm actually expressing my discontent, my anger and hate towards the president. I'm just telling him, I don't see what he's trying to say. Let me give you an example. You come, and I was there. I was there when the president came to Kisii, said he was going to set up places, regions, and there'll be pieces of land where this low-income housing is going to be set up. The question I'm asking is, what is the legal framework? What have we done in terms of setting up the infrastructure that is going to complement the houses which are going to be built? Are we going, for example, are we going to put these houses within Kisii town? Do we have land within Kisii town where we can actually put houses which are going to be 5,000 or 10,000, whatever there is? I feel that there are gaps which this current administration needs to explain to me, first of all, as a consumer, number two, as an MP, as a senator, so that even if I get an opportunity to explain to my voters, they will see the logic and sense of what we are saying. But the feeling that I'm having right now is that the KK Alliance is saying, we don't give a damn. We are going to do whatever it takes. We will build these houses irrespective of how much it's going to cost. I am still unable to comprehend how is 2,500 shillings going to generate for me to own a house which is going to be worth, let me assume, 1 million shillings. So there are certain outstanding issues within the bill which I am very, very uncomfortable about. I'll give you another example, Ayub. About, was it, I think, 4 months ago, where it was announced that Kenya is going to bring fuel. And this fuel is supposed to be bought using local currency. Okay. And this fuel was going to reduce the cost of fuel in the Republic. Nothing happened. All right? So in the period of 6 months, I am foreseeing where this argument, this money that the bill is supposed to generate, nobody is explaining. I sit in the IPA committee, I sit in the budget committee in the Senate. How are we going to pay in the next 6 months for fuel which has been delivered, all right, and which we have not been paying for?
Okay, we'll talk about the content now. It's now coming down to the components of the Finance Bill 2023, Members of Parliament, when we get back from the break. Here on the broadcast, this is Daybreak. The hashtag on Twitter is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. More after the break with the members of the bicameral parliament here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.